Breaking the Silence, Mental Health Conversations, with your hosts, Kim Oliver and Dr. Richard Doss. Together, we'll break the silence and challenge the stigma by speaking now. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's dive in. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, hi everybody. It's Kim Oliver and Richard Doss back again to have conversations in mental health that we call Breaking the Silence. And today we thought it would be really timely to be talking about family get-togethers during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, immediately following our elections in early November. And it can be so hard when you have such passion about your position in politics. And believe me, trust me, this is not going to be about politics. So we're not going to argue any political ideation here. But we are going to talk about how to navigate difference depending on what your goal is. Because your goal could be, I don't want to talk politics, I don't want to talk religion, whatever it is, maybe you have your taboo subjects at family gatherings, and that's the rule, and everybody knows, and that's what you do. You come in, you have polite conversation, but you don't talk about anything where it might cause conflict. And that's okay, that's a choice you can make. It could be that you have a choice, I don't want to have a family gathering with people who think the way that's different from mine. And I know that there are some families who have basically broken apart and don't get together anymore at holiday times because part of the family thinks one way and the other part of the family thinks another way. But I wanted to really talk about how to navigate those family relationships, those friend relationships, when you think and feel passionately different about the future of our country and the politicians that are in it, and how can you still maintain the relationships. Because I think at the end of the day, while the trajectory of our country is certainly important, I'm not arguing that, and that's hence the passion that we have about it. But I think at the end of the day, in each of our individual lives, what's most important are the people that we love.
Right.
And if we've lost sight of that, then I think we need to take a moment and do some introspection and ask ourselves, do I really want to let this relationship go? And if your truth is that you do want to let the relationship go, okay, I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't want that, if that's what you truly want. But I know for me, I have family members who think very differently from me. And there's no way that I want to let those relationships go. One of them is my brother. Two of them are my sons. I love them deeply, and I want them in my life. And it's okay with me that we think differently.
Okay.
It's okay. And I want to talk about how I managed to navigate those things, and maybe there's some ideas you can take from this conversation. I know Richard will have always brilliant things to add. And we can talk about how to do that if that is in fact what you all want to do. It's not going to work if you want to maintain the relationship and the people you want to stay in relationship with don't want to be in relationship with you. You can't make somebody want to be in relationship with you. So then maybe the question for you would become, how do I grieve the loss of this relationship that was so important to me over politics? And that's another thing that we can talk about. We might not get to that today, but that's something else that we could talk about. So do you have anything you want to add before I dive into what worked for my sons and I?
I don't know if you guys know this, but Thanksgiving is probably the most difficult family holiday of the year. You know, so people you haven't, spent time with, been around all year, you're all sitting around.
Eating.
Eating.
Too much.
A person hasn't gotten their first helping, there be people on their third helping. It's a difficult time. And so, like I said, we do have an election coming up, and it's going to be on the forefront of some people's minds. I know that I have friends on Facebook, right, who are into calling people stupid. And how could you vote for this person? How could you think like that? What's wrong with you? You're going to hell, and just, oh God, So just the idea that you don't have to be looking for the fight.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't have to be a formal invitation. It's an open invitation to the fight. And so, how do we have conversations with people that are loving, that are healthy and respectful, in an environment where people want us fighting. So, like I said, if we're friends, at the end of the day, if I'm a Republican and you're a Democrat, I want us to still be friends, Kim.
I do too.
And if you're a
but you better vote the way I
right,
want you.
right. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And then I think sometimes we will be quiet because we don't want people to know
rock
what we.
The boat.
Yeah. And
I just spoke with a 96-year-old woman yesterday who was telling me about a group of ladies that get together and they call themselves the Golden Girls, and she said there's 5 of them, and 4 of them are one political party and 1 is another, and 4 of them are one religion, and the one that's the other is also a different religion. So they have ground rules in their club.
I like it.
That they don't talk politics or religion. And I grew up with those 2 rules being taught by my mother. You should never talk about politics or religion because they're too fired up. It rocks the boat. It causes people to want to defend. And I think that we're never going to get beyond it if we don't talk about it. Now, I'm not suggesting Thanksgiving dinner is the time to do that, okay?
Right.
But what I want to start with when we talk about how people have different opinions and how you might think other people are stupid who don't see it the way that you see it, I think it's really important to understand how people develop their perceptions and their values. And the number one determinant is the information that you're exposed to. So if you think about people who believe in one direction and people who believe in a different direction, they tap into different sources of information. And I know
they're not watching the same news.
They're not watching the same news. And when I was a child, we had, this is gonna definitely date me,
Okay.
but we had 3 news stations. It was even before there was a Fox. We had ABC, NBC, and CBS.
Oh, yeah.
And they were on at
let me say, TV went off at midnight.
Yes, with the Star Spangled Banner.
That's right.
And the news shows were on at the same time. There was, depending on your time zone, there was news at 5, there was news at 11, and there was something in the morning, but I was always at school, so I didn't see that. But you could watch any channel. They had basically the same stories in the same sequence with no commentary. It was just like Joe Friday on Dragnet, just the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Just the facts, ma'am. And you heard the facts, and then you got to decide what you think about it. But now with the 24-hour news cycle, we have all these talking heads and news commentators who add their spin on whatever the facts are. And sometimes when you're listening to 2 different types of news, one that's geared towards one party, the other that's geared towards the other, sometimes those facts, I'll put in quotation marks, actually contradict one another. So it's not even possible for them both to be true. Or it's possible depending on what your input is. So maybe you're inputting one factor and over here they input that same factor but with a little spin, so it changes the outcome of what they're reporting. So I think it's important to know that what we're exposed to affects our perception. That's one thing. And you might have people listening who would say, I listen to all the news so I get a balanced perspective. And that's an excellent thing to do, let me say that.
Okay.
But there's one thing you can't get away from, and that's what we all have, that's called confirmation bias. We all have this thing called confirmation bias, which means we're looking for information that coincides with what we already believe. And when we find it, we think, aha, I have the truth.
Right. So another way to say it is we can find evidence to support anything we believe.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And when you do, that becomes your favored go-to news source because they're gonna tell you the things that you already know to be true, and it feels like the inevitable righteousness in the world.
Okay.
And so once you found that, you think that anyone else who's not seeing that or not valuing that in the same way that you do is stupid. Why can't they see what you see? This is the truth. And it could be the truth. I'm not here saying it's not the truth.
Right.
It could be the truth, but it's possible that a different news source might be more truthful than the one that you're listening to. So what I find really helpful when I'm trying to navigate a conversation with someone who feels differently about issues than I do is to ask them, what do they know about the topic and where do they get their information? And I want to hear it, I want to see it, not from a judgmental place. I'm not trying to look at it and say, well, that's not right. I'm not trying to debunk their thing. I'm trying to understand it. You have to come at it from a, we don't have to do anything, but if you want the relationship to be solid, you come at it from a place of curiosity instead of judgment. Let me try to understand how this person sees what they see from this particular news source, because when I look at it with my confirmation bias, I think that's the craziest thing I ever heard. But this person who may have a different confirmation bias thinks it's the ultimate truth. And it could be the ultimate truth. I could be wrong. With differences of information that's out there, there's no way that I know of to unequivocally determine what is the truth.
Okay.
Add in AI, and you've got images and recordings that say things that people never said.
Wow.
And so if you see a picture and you say, I know it's true because I saw it, or if you hear a video and you say, I heard him say it with my own mouth, I watched the words come out of his mouth, that could be AI generated. We don't, I mean, maybe there are people who have equipment that they can tell. I don't have that kind of equipment.
I don't have it either. Yeah.
And if your news source says, we've looked at that and it's definitely AI generated, and my news source says, we've looked at that and it's definitely not AI generated, we have opposing views. They can't possibly both be true, but how do we know which one is right? You're going to believe yours, I'm going to believe mine, and you can walk away thinking, how stupid are you? And you're thinking, how stupid am I? Wow. So I just want people to understand how it happens, how we can have such diametrically opposed views, and there's no way of knowing which one is actually right and which one isn't right. I mean, you can do the odds, you can say, well, 40 news stations say this and 2 news stations say that, but you don't know if those 40 news stations aren't controlled by some group of people who are feeding them the information they want them to give to the American public, and the American public are sheep following these news stations, and the only ones telling the truth are these 2 over here. And then you have the people listening to the 40 news stations that know they're not sheep, and they think these 2 outliers over here, they're the ones that are lying. But if we can understand that there's truly no way of knowing the inevitable truth, at least not that I'm aware of.
Right.
And we just say, you know, everybody is going to lean in the direction of their confirmation bias and the information they're being exposed to. And then we recognize, you know, everybody, at least in the United States, gets 1 vote. That's the way that it's meant to be. We go to the polls, you vote your way, I vote my way. And then, of course, we have this added layer of electoral college, which doesn't make it exactly 1 vote, 1 person, 1 vote. It kind of skews things a particular way.
But I'm wondering now, how do we have a conversation about making our country stronger if we're playing the game of I'm on this side and you're on that side?
Well, we can't, and that's the problem. You can't talk about making your country stronger when you have 2 completely different ideas about what that looks like. Now, my sons and I have 2 sons, and I won't say who's on which side, but
Don't call names.
We're on opposite ends of the political spectrum. And because they're my children, and I love them more than life, I want to understand why they think the way that they do. And I talked about the information. That's the first thing. What information are you exposing yourself? Second thing is confirmation bias. And the third thing is what's important to you. Because if you are, I don't know, If you're someone who's never going to have children, you don't have grandchildren of your own, you're not of childbearing years, maybe the abortion issue is not anything that you think about. It's not important to you.
Okay.
But if you're a 20-something-year-old female who wants to have control over their own bodies and does not want the government involved in their relationship between them and their doctor, then they may have two completely different values that would lead them in a different direction of what candidate they're going to vote for. Gun safety is another polarizing issue. There are people who believe that we need to have common sense gun laws, and we need to not have automatic guns available, and that perhaps we need to not allow 18-year-olds to get a hold of firearms. But then you have people on another side who say 18-year-olds get firearms, weapons, when they become a military member and they're trusted in a combat zone. How can we say you have to be 21 or 25 or whatever age you want to say in the civilian world? That seems inequitable. And then you have other people who say, if you have common sense gun laws, the only people left with guns will be the criminals, and I want to defend myself. So who's to say those people are wrong? Over here you have parents of children who have been gunned down in mass school shootings, and they're saying these guns are the problem. And over here people are saying it's not the guns, man, the guns are just a tool. It's the mental health issues of the people who use the guns. So it's not so much that we disagree about wanting a safer America. It's that we disagree about how to get there. And based on what we think is the right way, we're going to lean towards a different candidate. That doesn't mean it's something that you and I have to fight to the death before we go to the polls over, right? You get to have your own values. You get to decide what's important to you. I get to decide what's important to me. And because you value something more than I do and I value a different thing more than you do, doesn't make either one of us wrong.
Well, and it doesn't make you have a character flaw.
That's right. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. And it doesn't mean that I'm a sheep, or that, anything else that we may be saying to people. I think that there are forces that want the American people to be at odds with one another. Okay. I don't know who those forces are. I'm not here trying to concoct a conspiracy theory about that. But I do believe that there are people who benefit from the American people being at odds with one another. And I believe that the more we can do to help us move closer to a solution rather than polarizing, the better off we are. But that gets into politics, and I really didn't want today to be about politics. I wanted today to be about how do we maintain relationships with people who are going to vote differently than us. And maybe by the time they hear this video, the voting's already happened. I'm not sure when this will be posted, but we're talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we know that the election will be over. What we don't know is what's going to happen after the election.
Right.
What will happen? I have no idea. There was some scary stuff that happened after the last presidential election. I don't know if there's going to be more of that. I don't know if there'll be civil war. I don't know if there'll be militias. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but in the midst of all of that, there's going to be families and friends who are trying to get together for things like Thanksgiving and Christmas and those holidays, Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, and all the things, and New Year's, the things that we come together to celebrate as a humanity, not as Democrats, Republicans, independents, or anything. We need to be able to commune and care about and love the people that are important to us and not villainize them for thinking and feeling differently than we do. That's the point that I want to make today. I don't know what you want to say about that.
Well, I was at a party just last night, a friend celebrating his 70th birthday.
Wow.
70th birthday. It was a beautiful event. And every demographic that you could imagine was there. There were old people there. There were children there. White, black, Hindu, and just about everything else you could imagine. and man, it was just love in the room, and people. We didn't talk about politics. Can I say that?
And probably not religion either.
And we didn't talk about religion, but we had a great time. So I think it's true that America has some amazing people. I remember when I was in high school. I went to a predominantly white high school, and I was about to go to college down in Mississippi, and I was going to Jackson State. And my teachers, a couple of my professors in high school said, Richard, you're going down to Mississippi. Are you sure you want to go down to Mississippi? They're going to kill you down there, right? And I got to Mississippi, and I met some of the warmest, most loving, kindest people you could ever imagine. So I'm down there, I do Jackson State, and I go to Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi, and it's time for me to come up to Chicago. So I'm going to do my, right.
I can only imagine. Don't go there, they're gonna kill you there.
Yeah. So they thought the white people were gonna kill me in Mississippi, and then the folks down in Mississippi thought that the black people in Chicago were gonna kill me. So the idea is that there are good people wherever you go. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what religion they are. And I don't.
Or who they vote for.
Come on now. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And so, yeah, how do we realize that, you and I can have different opinions and you still be a good person and I still be a good person. You going to heaven and I'm going to heaven. Or you going to hell and I'm going to hell, but the idea is that along that journey, we can still be friends. We don't have to have the same views. And I think it makes America healthier when we have actually differing views that you've heard the saying, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Just the idea that we get sharper, better, stronger when we challenge and strengthen each other.
Right, and I think that also speaks to, we don't have to stop talking about these subjects. We have to stop judging where other people stand on these subjects. That's the thing that I would say needs to come out. But if we talk about our differences, it can help us develop tolerance for those differences. And one of the things that happens for me, my son's friends all think like they do, and they have no idea that I think differently. But my sons like to tell them when I'm around. They'll say things like, oh, don't talk to her, she's a blank. Oh. And they'll fill in my political affiliation. And what's really interesting and fun about that is these people that I've known since they were children, because they've grown up with my sons, they'll look at me give me a little side eye. You're not really, are you? And I'll say, yeah, I am. Wow. And what that does is, it doesn't make them hate me. It makes them think, oh, Mrs. Olver thinks like that, and we like her. She's really a good person. She's been in my life since as long as I can remember. How can I hate her? And they don't hate me. They may think I'm misguided when I'm not around. They might talk about me being stupid. I don't think that they do, though. But
it's everybody else in your party is stupid. You're different.
I'm different, right? Oh, you're a nice one of them. But I actually think that when we talk about it and people understand, the people that they know might think different, if they don't villainize them, it helps them see, well, maybe you can be a good person and think differently. Maybe that doesn't mean you're stupid. It might be able to generalize and rub off onto other people. But if we don't identify, if we don't talk about those things, then we have no idea. We're just living in these divisive, different silos, right? Like, no, I can't talk to you. You're a horrible person. You're stupid. You're a moron. You're this, you're that. And this person is saying, no, I can't talk to you. You're stupid. You're a moron, and this and that. Right. And that is not going to help us heal. We're going to have to heal. Whatever this election shows, there's going to be healing needed on both sides. And I think that the healing starts first inside ourselves, and then with the people that we love and care about, our families and our close friends.
So I'll go first, and I'll say, I love you, no matter what political affiliation you have.
And the same from me to you. I love you too. I don't know your political affiliation, and I don't I don't care what it is. And if it's different from mine, we could have some nice political discord because we love to talk.
That's right.
And
That's
and
right.
it's not going to change how I feel about you. So that's an example, and I just want to thank you for tuning in. I hope that some of this may help you in some way. I think one of the main things is to stop trying to change someone else's mind. You just have to let them have their beliefs and their values and their vote. And you have your beliefs, your values, and your vote. And then what will come what may. Come what may. So thank you for tuning in. If you have any ideas for topics you'd like Richard and I to cover in the future, please drop a comment or send us an email at the email address on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. I just want to say, if you have any topics or areas that you would like Richard and I to focus on in future videos, just drop a comment here. Send us an email at the address that's on the screen.